weeks. We gave him a little summer reprieve, but we're back in action. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Sully. How are you today?
Good, man. You excited about the high school football season? It's only 2 weeks away. Actually, 1 week away for some teams.
Yeah, we start next weekend with a couple games down at St. Augustine and St. Joe's. So, we're slowly building up to it. But when those games come rolling around, that'll kick things off, and we'll get going.
Kevin, before we get into the new West Jersey Football League, wanted to get your take on what's going on at Timber Creek. Give us an update on what's going on. I guess they're getting investigated for perhaps some improprieties in terms of kids that maybe live out of the district playing for the football program. Where does that stand right now?
Yeah, we broke that story about, I'd say it was a little bit over 2 weeks ago now, and pretty much it's the topic of conversation as far as South Jersey football right now. And like you said, the program right now is under investigation by the Camden County Prosecutor's Office regarding various accusations. The ones that have really come out in the public has been the fact of transfers and basically kids not living at the homes in which they're registered at. And the prosecutor's office came out with a statement yesterday that they are, this investigation is taking various angles and going in various directions. So there's a lot to it. I think a lot of people want to see a solution, come to some kind of final solution soon. And while it's hanging, it's a black cloud that really is hanging over the Timber Creek program. And but the prosecutor's office, in my opinion, is not going to take a case in which they don't think they can gather information and really try to drive home a point, I guess. And they're going to take their time. So there's no timetable for this. There's no it's going to be over before the season starts. It's going to be over before the season begins. I'm sorry. And it could go for a little while. So it's really what the prosecutor how they want to handle it, and we just kind of play right now, wait and see.
Anything similar to this in recent memory in South Jersey?
I think you hear about the transfer issue. You kind of hear about it every year. There's always seems to be a transfer here or there that people are talking about, but to this magnitude, no. This is pretty, with the information. I'll just tell you this: with the information that we know, what we've been able to kind of piece together a little bit, that this could be, this could be rather significant. And like I say, we really just have to wait for the prosecutor to come out, because there are issues involving transfers in the past. Generally the NJSIA has stepped in and taking care of that. But when you're bringing in a government agency now to look over things, that should throw up a red flag to anybody that it's more than just a little something, that it is rather significant.
Talk with Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post. Does a great job covering high school football. Kevin, let's talk about the West Jersey Football League a little bit. What teams stand out to you as teams that are going to have a really hard time in terms of the schedule they have to play, maybe go into a new division? Obviously, some former Cape Atlantic League teams that are now in new divisions. The Independence Division really is an interesting one to me. Cedar Creek, Oakcrest, Mainland, Absegami, St. Joe, Hamilton, and Ocean City. There's a lot of real good perennial Group 3 solid teams in there, and some Group 2s. And that's to me, is a really interesting division here in the Shore area. Talk about that a little bit, and then maybe some teams that former Cape Atlantic League fans might not really know about, out towards the Cherry Hill area, or maybe even down towards the Pennsville area.
Yeah, you look at that division now. As just a recap, and now you have 95 teams from basically it's from Princeton down to Wildwood. So everybody that plays high school football in traditional South Jersey, the traditional 7 counties of South Jersey, is now in this West Jersey Football League. And just so people have an understanding of this, what the biggest thing that the West Jersey League does is provides every team with a full 9-game schedule, and that is one one of its biggest priorities. And, you don't have teams now having to go out and try to find games, which is really a big deal, because there have been times when teams have had trouble finding games. St. Joe has had trouble finding games. There's been times when St. Augustine maybe has had a time finding a game. And, we are, it's a great way for, this league to really help out, the communities and get these teams these games. And the way these divisions are set up, especially this year with the addition of the Colonial Conference and the Cal, is that, a lot of these teams are going to play the same teams they've played in the past. But there's going to be some crossover games against some teams that are going to probably be a little bit better than some of the weaker teams that, these teams have been forced to play in recent years. And it creates a competitive balance. And, that independent division with St. Joe, St. Joe will play Cedar Creek this year. They're going to play St. Augustine again. They're going to play Ocean City in their league, but they're going to go out of their league and play Pennsville. They're going to open at Mainland. So what it does is it creates a very good competitive balance. It gives teams that may have struggled in the past an opportunity to play against teams that are more on their level, so to speak. And it's really, really a really good thing for South Jersey football. And, to have the entire South Jersey football community under one umbrella is nothing but a positive thing right now.
I really like it. I mean, like you said, with the competitive balance, I mean, in the past, there was really no reason for a team like Egg Harbor Township that dresses 85 kids to go down and play a Lower Cape May that might have less than 30. I mean, that's a mismatch right there, and just in terms of the numbers. So you really do get some good matchups with the bigger schools. Particularly, they're not going to be able to go down and play a Group 1 or 2. They're going to have to, face a team like Washington Township or something like that that's more on their level in terms of size.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Most teams in pretty much every instance, if you were to break down the schedule and look at it, you look at each division, you're playing teams in your group, you're playing teams of similar size, and if you're not playing teams in your group, you're only going one group above or one group below. So in most instances, that you can't ask for anything better than that. That's fair. And then, like I said, it creates that balance. St. Joe is a little bit of a different animal in that, they may play a school that is technically a group or two above them, but the West Jersey League also took into I'm sure they've also taken into consideration the fact of the history of St. Joe and what they've traditionally been able to do. So a school like St. Joe, who may, as far as its size, be a 1 or a 2, they're going to play Absegami, they're going to play Mainland, which are 4s. But St. Joe has done enough in its most recent past to say, okay, that's not that big of a difference. They can handle that kind of matchup. So, it doesn't happen very often on the schedule, but there are a couple instances where they may jump 2 groups. But, I think the West Jersey League has done a really nice job in the way that they put together the schedules, the way they put together the divisions. And, they've given everyone an opportunity to compete. And that's the biggest thing, because there have been games that, clearly have not been competitive.
Talking with Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post. Kevin, one of the divisions that really jumps out in my mind is the American Division. Cherokee, Washington Township, Kingsway, Shawnee, Hamilton, and Williamstown. Man, that's a brutal division. How do you see that shaking out?
Yeah, when you look at this, that's the biggest division of the West Jersey Football League. So, Hamilton comes into that division this year. Cherry Hill East dropped out of the division this year, and that's a division where you legitimately, Kingsway, I think, of the six teams this year, is probably the one team out of the 6 that may struggle a little bit in the division, in that they've lost a lot of players to graduation. They have a new coach in Mark Hendricks. Trying to get that new system down is obviously going to be a little bit of a period of time that they're going to need to come together and mesh together and get things on one page. But You look at every other team in that division: Cherokee, Hamilton, Shawnee, Washington Township, and Williamstown. Any team can win that division, and I don't see the winner of that division going undefeated. I think the winner of that division may lose 2 games. I mean, that's the way that this division is set up. This is the cream of the crop right here in a lot of ways. You have Cherokee, a perennial power. Hamilton's a perennial power. Shawnee's a defending, South Jersey 4 finalist. I'm sorry, losing to Creek last year, but they were a finalist and have been a finalist for a couple of years now. And Williamstown was the South Jersey Group 5 finalist last year. So, that division is extremely difficult. But the point of the matter is, every team in that is good, and if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, they say. And teams look on that schedule and say, "Oh, we have a tough schedule." But you know what? Everybody else is looking at you too, saying, that's a tough team to beat. So, that team for team, that division among the 13 or so divisions that there are is very competitive, and does have some of the upper echelon teams.
I'll tell you, Kevin, another division that really interests me is the Colonial Division with West Deptford, Haddonfield, Collingswood, Overbrook, Audubon, and Sterling. I mean, those first 3 teams are perennial South Jersey Group 2 championship contenders. That's going to be a really interesting division to follow throughout the year.
Yeah, that's a division where they bring the teams out of the Colonial, and those teams, if it would have maintained its natural Colonial Conference schedule, those teams probably would have all played each other this year anyway. But what it's done is it takes out some of the schools that are in the smaller schools that would have been on the other side in the Colonial, and takes them out of the equation for most part on their schedules. Haddonfield will play. They'll have to go to Holy Cross. They'll have to go and play Cedar Creek. Some of the crossover games for these teams are games that would never have happened before in their own league. West Deptford will play a Willingboro, a Woodstown, a Cinnaminson. So, there's some games in there that are basically replaced from last year. Whereas there won't be any more of these running clocks after halftime, because the crossover games are going to be much more competitive than their crossover games would have been had the league maintained its status. So, the Colonial is that's a decent division. I think every division is going to within the division itself. Most divisions are going to be very competitive. There's probably 2, if not 3 teams in any of the 16 divisions that are capable of winning it. So it all falls back to what the West Jersey's goal is in forming a competitive schedule and giving teams games. So no one should be complaining about the way the things are set up.
Tell you what, man, as far as a sports reporter goes, you got to be excited about this year. There's going to be a ton of great games every weekend.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. There's been times where you look at the schedule, especially on a Saturday, because most teams play on Fridays. That you look on a Saturday schedule and there's not much out there. But this year with these games and with the crossovers and stuff, it's going to brings a more interesting matchups to the table. So, whether it's Friday night or Saturday, every weekend is going to have some very, very good games.
Good stuff, Kevin. Appreciate you stopping by. We'll check in with you throughout the season, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, anytime, Sully. We like jumping on the air with you guys.
You got it, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too.
That was Kevin Minnick for the Courier-Post. Always